Would you cut off 10 inches of hair for a boy who didn't even know your name? Most people would say no. Most people would say that's crazy. Jade said the same thing right up until the moment she opened the salon door. There's a specific kind of crush that lives entirely in your chest, not the loud kind. Not the kind you text your friends about at midnight or dissect over dining hall coffee. The quiet kind. The kind where you just notice someone over and over again, without meaning to. That was Liam for Jade. She first really saw him in October of freshman year, standing outside the fashion design building with a sketchbook under his arm, laughing at something his friend said. He wasn't doing anything remarkable. That was almost the point. There was just something unhurried about him, something that made the air around him feel slightly different. She never spoke to him, not once in 2 semesters. She just carried the feeling around like a smooth stone in her pocket, small, private, always there. Jade was a sophomore now. Good student, a little athletic, the kind of girl who looked put together without making a project of it. Her best friend Brooke was sharper, blonde, opinionated, allergic to sugarcoating. And she had known about the Liam situation for exactly as long as Jade had been pretending it wasn't a situation. It was a Tuesday morning when Brooke said it. They were crossing the quad, iced coffees sweating in the early heat when Brooke slowed her pace just slightly, which was always the tell. "Can I tell you something without you making it weird?" Jade glanced over. "That opener never ends well." "I heard something about Liam." Smooth stone shifted. "He's in my typography elective this semester," Brooke continued. "And someone was talking about his type-like, aesthetically. Apparently he's really drawn to girls with short hair, says it reads more confident. More intentional." She paused. His word was edgy. Jade's free hand moved to her ponytail without her permission. 10 inches of dark brown hair. She'd had it her whole life. Her mother trimmed the ends every few months. She had never, not once, sat in a real salon chair. "I'm just telling you what I heard," Brooke said. Then, quieter. "But Jade, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, make sure you're doing it for you, not for a boy who's never even introduced himself." "I'm not thinking anything," Jade said. Brooke gave her a look that said, "Sure you're not." She couldn't write that night. Couldn't focus. Sat at her desk with a half-finished essay glowing on her laptop screen and just drifted. The thing was, and she kept turning this over quietly, honestly, it wasn't just about Liam. It had never been entirely about Liam. She had thought about cutting her hair before. Vaguely. The way you think about rearranging your whole room at 2 a.m., you can picture it perfectly, you just never actually move the furniture. She'd watched women around her go shorter for years. Her professor. Girls she followed online. Even Brooke, who'd cut hers to the shoulder last spring and never looked back. Jade had always watched and thought, maybe someday. And someday had just kept being someday. It grows back, she thought. That's the whole thing about hair. It always grows back. She closed the laptop without finishing the essay. The next morning she had no class until noon. She did what she always did on free mornings, wandered the streets near campus with a coffee, no destination, just movement and shop windows and the particular pleasure of being unhurried. She wasn't looking for anything. She wasn't heading anywhere, and then she stopped. A clothing boutique window, wide, floor-length glass. Her own reflection came back at her, full and sudden. Sundress. Denim jacket. Hair down, all the way down, the way it had always been. She raised both hands slowly to her jaw, held them there. Looked at herself, really looked, the way you rarely do, and felt something shift quietly in her chest. What if she stood there long enough that a woman walking past glanced at her twice? Then she lowered her hands, took a breath, and instead of turning back at the corner like she always did, she turned right, down a narrower street. Past a dry cleaner, a used bookshop, a cafe with chairs out front. And then she stopped in front of a small salon she had walked past a dozen times without ever really seeing. Haven Hair Studio. Warm light through the glass. A simple sandwich board. Walk-ins welcome, 30 seconds. She stood there for 30 full seconds. Then she opened the door, small inside. 4 stations along a mirrored wall, 2 wash basins at the back, a little waiting area near the door. 2 stylists working. One was blow-drying a woman's silver hair into a smooth wave. The other, precise, blonde bob, moved like she'd been doing this for 20 years, was finishing a young guy's undercut. Clippers running clean along his nape. One smooth, deliberate line. Jade watched. Felt her stomach do something complicated. "Next, hun, take a seat." She sat. She watched the cape come off the guy in the chair, watched him run a hand over his freshly clipped neck with obvious satisfaction. The stylist caught Jade's eye in the mirror and smiled, the kind of smile that said, I know exactly why you're here. When it was her turn, Jade sat down and the stylist gathered her hair gently, combing it smooth from root to end. So, what are we doing today? A bob, Jade said, steadier than she expected. Sharp, real, I don't want it to look like I was scared. Stylist's expression opened into a real smile. I like that brief. She met Jade's eyes in the mirror. How long have you been thinking about this? Longer than I've admitted, Jade said. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tie it back and take the ponytail off in one clean cut. Gets the fear out of the way first. A beat. Ready? Jade looked at herself one last time, long hair, familiar face, the girl she had always been, and felt something settle. Yes, she said. Do it. Elastic snapped into place. The stylist's grip tightened on the ponytail. The scissors opened, snip, snip, snip. And then it was done. The stylist held up the ponytail, 10 inches, dark brown, and Jade stared at her own reflection with jaw-length ends swinging against her cheeks, and her eyes filled without warning. Not grief, not regret. Something wider than both of those. Like watching a door close on a room you'd lived in your whole life, and realizing the new room had better light. Come on, the stylist said softly. Let's wash your hair. After the wash, sitting back in the chair with the shape beginning to form around her face, Jade heard herself say something she hadn't planned. Could you clip the nape? Clean like you did with that guy earlier. Stylist paused. Then, that is going to look absolutely stunning on you. The silver cape went around her shoulders in one smooth motion, cool nylon. Snug at the neck over a fresh paper strip, fastened tight. The chair rose. The back sections were clipped up and the stylist worked through the nape in clean, unhurried passes. Dark strands slid down the cape, then the clippers came on. Chin down for me. Jade lowered her head. The clippers touched the base of her neck, and the sensation moved through her like a current. Not pain, nothing close to pain. A deep, rolling shiver that spread from her nape up through her shoulders and didn't stop. Her fingers curled around the armrests. Her breath went shallow. Every pass of the clippers sent another wave of it through her, warm, electric, startlingly alive. She had not expected to feel this much. She had not expected any of this to feel like becoming. When the clippers clicked off, she realized her whole body had gone still, the specific stillness of someone trying to hold onto a feeling before it fades. The front was refined. The shape completed. The cape lifted away, the neck strip peeled clean, and the stylist turned her toward the mirror. Sharp bob, clipped nape. Jaw length in the front. Clean as a sentence with nothing wasted. Jade stared. Oh, there she is. Brooke was waiting outside her dorm the next morning. When she saw Jade coming up the path, she went completely still, the way people go still when something lands harder than they expected. Jade. Almost a whisper. You actually did it. I did. You look. Brooke stopped. Started again. You look like yourself. Like more yourself than before. Does that make sense? It made complete sense. All morning, Jade moved through campus differently. Not because the hair was shorter, because she'd made a decision and walked through a door and sat in the chair and said, yes, do it. That was the thing that changed the air around her. Not the cut. The choice. She was crossing the quad between classes, coffee in hand, chin up, the autumn breeze moving clean through hair that barely touched her jaw when she heard it. Jade, she turned. Liam, stopping mid-stride, sketchbook under his arm, looking at her the way she had looked at herself in the salon mirror, like something had just rearranged itself. Hey, Liam. He took her in, not rudely, not obviously, but with the careful attention of someone who notices things for a living. I almost didn't recognize you. A pause. That cut, the line at the nape especially, that's a real choice. That's confident. Cool, not nice. Confident. He saw exactly what she'd done and named it precisely. Something warm moved through her chest. Thanks, she said. Simple, unhurried, a beat stretched between them, the good kind, the kind with possibility in it. Been meaning to ask you something, Liam said, and she could hear the slight effort in it, the small courage. Would you want to get coffee sometime, this week maybe? Jade smiled, slow, like she had all the time in the world. Yeah, she said. I think I would. She turned and kept walking, steady pace. Chin level, the breeze in her short, sharp, chosen hair, and the thought that settled in her chest, quiet and sure as anything she'd ever known, not just for him. For me, always for me.